2. Take off your credential.
He's man. I know. It's really bad. That would have been tough to live down.
All right.
Oh, dodged a bullet.
3. We're leaving this in, by the way. Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Mike Catalana.
Credentialist Dan Fates.
Yes, and I'm Jenna Cottrell. Day 2 of training camp here at St. John Fisher University. We talked a lot. Oh, like, comment, and subscribe.
Also, we don't know how long this video is going to be because it looks like the apocalypse is coming our way.
Yeah, there's a lot of clouds.
It's coming in, going out. We're fine.
They're very angry.
What could go wrong?
All right, yesterday we talked more about what happened in terms of the podium, the press conferences after. Today I wanted to start with what we saw out on the field. And Dan, you tweeted about it. Stefon Diggs is out there making plays.
He is by far the most... Again, we are 2 days into practice. So
yes.
all of these tweets, I preface with, I know it's day 2 of training camp and all of these things. Stefon Diggs has been far and away the best player at training camp so far. Every single time, I don't have the stats, but every single pass that Josh has thrown to 14, it seems like it's been completed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter any way, any route, any of those things. He's been the most, to me, dynamic player.
I would agree. He did yesterday. There was an interception, but that was more on Allen than it was on Diggs. But I will say, there was a play today where Josh was able to thread the needle to Diggs, and it was one of those catches where they got up and like, oh my gosh, he caught the ball?
Yeah.
Like, it was just a tiny window. It was impressive.
Well, I think that sets a tone at the place, right? We talk about all these young guys here. You see Stefon Diggs like that first few days of training camp.
Yeah.
You know, it's time to go to work, and he's ready to go to work.
I think he's got a little bit of that chip.
Yeah.
I think
I do too, yeah.
For as much as Stefon could have put out whatever drama there was earlier, okay, I think he was adding it, taking notes. He was the Ryan Howard meme in the office where he's writing down the notes. Like,
I'm keeping a list of everyone who wrongs me, so when I'm back on top, they'll be sorry.
like he's taking, and I think he could be on this man on fire rampage this season to prove everybody wrong that he is not this diva. That, again, he talks about it time and time again. Went back and listened to the interview, which you could also watch the full interview, the press conference on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, about how nobody's ever questioned how hard I work.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever questioned the type of leader that I am. Nobody's ever questioned those things, the way my teammates view me. He just seems like a guy that has added motivation on top of not winning a Super Bowl, personal motivation.
Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about all the accolades he does have. Obviously, he's chasing that Super Bowl, but it's almost like, and Diggs has been so good with the Bills, but I feel like you're right. Like, at this point, it feels like the bar is up even higher, which is really cool. And yes, it's day 2.
But you're interesting when you say about the bar. Look how high his bar is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about who are the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he's right there. Honestly, it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
You win, you get to the Super Bowl, right? You elevate even as an individual player. I think he wants it from the team aspect, but he also wants it individually.
And there's another guy out there who we all expect to get back to that bigger role on the offense, and that's Gabriel Davis as the number 2.
Are we going with Gabriel?
Gabe Davis. I don't know. I
Mike
feel like
said
it's
it.
like
Mike said it today.
I mean,
Now
sometimes I
it's
call
in our
Mike
head.
Michael. Like,
I
so
want
I feel like
to
it's like,
advance him a little bit. I want to bring him back to that guy because that's who he was in the beginning. And then it became Gabe, and this one he was above expectations when he was younger.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give him Gabriel because I think he's going to go above expectations.
He talked today after practice, and it was probably the most open. Were you there?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I feel like it was the most open that we had seen him and what he didn't have a terrible year last year, obviously, but the expectations were here and he was under that.
Yeah.
And I think he had a lot of time to reflect, which I thought was really important because he's not where he wants to be.
I found it interesting at the end. You asked the question about Stefon Diggs saying you could be a number 1.
Yeah.
And he can be that kind of guy. What is he? You know, because in the league, there's one thing that media people say. Players talk about being a number 1 at wide receiver, right? And he said, for a guy like Steph to say it, that's great because of who he is.
Yeah.
And then he said, maybe other people should be thinking that way too.
Yeah.
But you got to play that way. You got to play that way on the field. It's one thing to say he has the
Correct.
potential to. I say it. I think he's a critical player for their offense this year. I really do. If you get more production out of Gabe, I think it makes a huge difference.
He's the key. He can unlock.
Oh, is that what that was?
That's the key.
Okay, the key. Okay.
He
good.
can unlock this Bills offense.
Yeah.
He needs to be a guy, we said last year. It wasn't a fact of could he make the big plays. He made the big plays last year.
Yeah.
It's a fact of being consistent.
Yes.
The Bills need another guy that when Stephon Diggs goes for 8 and 115, they need another guy that we said, what did we say the hypothetical number is? 6 and 70?
Yeah.
6 catches, 70 yards on a consistent basis. It can't be 3 catches for 28 yards one game and 10 catches the next game. It needs to be level.
It can't be feast and famine.
Correct.
It's exactly that.
But this is interesting. So our friend Matt Bove, who works Channel 7 in Buffalo, was telling me he was talking
Friend
to
of
Gabe.
the channel.
Yeah.
Yes, about
Good guy.
the
TM.
role, and they were talking about targets. And I will say one thing about Gabe Davis. His targets have been 18 yards down the field.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the norm. That sort of fits the kind of player he is. That's when we look at 48 catches on, what was it, like 80 or 90?
800 yards.
Right, but in
890.
terms of the amount of targets thrown to him.
He had 98 targets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's at 50%. But he's not getting a lot of cheapies.
Nope.
And that's not been part of the offense. So the question is that be more of his strength, or can they get him going with some easier routes, easier catches? All players usually need those. Yeah, well, it is, but I don't think talent-wise,
Who?
I don't think they've had that guy to help them. I mean,
Mine easy.
he was effective when you have Beasley out there underneath.
I know.
You okay?
I'm laughing at an inside joke between Dan and I of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay, don't worry.
I just think, like, again, we went into this last year. Gabe Davis has been a topic on this channel for quite some years.
Well, he talked about
and
that.
if you have the
yeah.
mug, you can flip it to the Dan is right side, because I just haven't been
please.
necessarily, again, I've been more underperforming. Again, we went through it. Gabe Davis didn't have a bad year last year, but based on the expectations of what it was, he did underperform the expectations.
You know, he did say in his press conference that he really
watched
hates
Buffalo
that
Plus?
Dan Fates guy. He did talk though. He's like, you know,
That'd be
I
amazing
heard a
clip.
lot of stuff, and he's like, and that he said he mentally needs to check out of that, and that's something he learned last season of being like he can't be invested in that.
It was interesting. I go back to when Brian Daboll was the coordinator, and he would talk about Gabe, and he would say, I can put this kid anywhere. I can put him on the outside, the inside. And he embraced that role. But as he has moved up, the wide receiver room has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And they do not have those guys. Beasley, even when he was back last year, he's not the same player. They don't have the guys that you could count on for those other catches, and they didn't, especially last year. And McKenzie wasn't the guy they wanted in the slot. Now, things are different this year for him, and I think some of it is on Gabe. It has to be, right? You can't just dismiss it, because certainly isn't that Josh is afraid to throw him the ball.
Correct.
I mean, 98 targets
Yeah.
is a lot of targets. But I think some of it is on play calling and maybe having the other guys that are consistent performers that help open things up for both he and Diggs.
Well, he talked too about the Bills have talked so much about how much confidence they have in him, what he means to this team, all this stuff. And he says, you know, knowing that you have the full support of the guys that are calling your name is huge. And whether you like that or not, I think that is important psychologically for a player. And then also he talked too about just it's a contract year. And that and whether or not he wants that to play into it, that I think is going to be talked about as well.
Okay, drawing a comparison to hockey fans. Tage Thompson was always this highly thought of prospect.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, he was a part of the Ryan O'Reilly trade, big move that brought this young player, massive guy to come to this team. And he talks about that he had Don Granato, who's the Sabres head coach, worked with him early on in development teams, had him on the national teams. And he said he sat down with him when Granato got the job, and Granato's like, you're going to be this great player and all these things. But it needs to be now.
Yeah.
Like there's no more of like, hey, Gabe, you're going to be all these things. There has to be a sense of urgency. It's part of the contract.
Yeah.
It's part of the necessity that this team needs. You can't be a great player down the road right now.
Yeah.
Gabe needs to be that guy right now.
Well, 100%.
But he knows that. It's not like he's like,
this is
Okay,
for
but-
the
But
team.
knowing it and doing it are the difference.
I completely agree. But at the same point, last year, I think that injury played more than what people were expecting.
Okay, McDermott, I get it.
I mean,
They
I
do
do.
talk about it.
He did talk about, though, psychologically, like he wanted to do everything he could to be out there.
You
He worked
too.
as hard as possible.
Even when you agree, it sounds like you disagree.
But but it's like your body can only do so much. And
Family
we
Matters
asked,
theme song.
yeah. He said, we're like, how do you feel now? He's like, I feel great. I feel like how I wanted to feel.
But let's
Injuries
not
will happen
even
throughout the
undersell the. Let's not undersell. It is a contract year, so you're either getting paid or you're not. You're getting paid, whether it's the Bills or somebody else. I can tell you this: I believe if he gets off to a good start, they're going to sign him to an extension during the season.
I agree.
I think it'll happen. If
agree.
he's good and they like him in this role, they're going to sign him.
You talk about him needing to be good. There is no deadline like a contract. That to me is like you got. You're gonna figure it. Either you're gonna figure it out if you're not, or you're not.
Well, the reason I say
millions
that
of dollars makes a difference in your mind.
Jenna, if they see it in him, they want him. They so badly want him to be the guy.
Yeah.
I think
I agree.
they have a lot of faith in him. So does Josh. You're right. It's got to happen now. Put it to you this way.
But we are not at now.
If it doesn't,
Does that make sense?
We're
It is
kind of
now.
it now.
But I'm saying yes, we're at now, but like it's not quite now. Like it's the season.
to now.
I'm saying you mean like he needs to be
It's
good right now, and it's like we'll see.
Now?
Oh my gosh.
No, my point is too is like Mike being like they want him and all these things. Wanting is great. They want to be able to run the football. They couldn't do it. Wanting Gabe to be that guy, it's going to take the next step.
I just remembered the second thing that Sean McDermott said.
That was literally 24 hours ago. This
He
mind.
said he wanted to build a more physical identity.
Oh, okay. All right. So if you've been waiting 24 hours to see Jenna's
I'm
mind
not
at
high.
work and come back.
Not high.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clip this together.
Oh my
yesterday.
gosh.
It's gonna be really
That
good.
is
Oh my God.
hilarious.
24
By the
hours
way,
later.
Does that mean you weren't paying attention to what Dan and I were saying?
No, I kind of
Zoned out, yeah.
Okay, I just meant the now is now this year, but he can only show so much in training camp. The now has to be on the field during the season.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
And as I've said before, this is nothing new in my thoughts. It is very different to go from the pinch hitter in baseball that comes up and hits a couple
Absolutely.
home runs to then becoming the four hitter in a team that is expecting to do it. Some people can, some people don't. Some guys are just that fill-in guys.
Yeah.
They are complementary pieces. They need Gabe to be a top 30 wide receiver this year.
Well, I think you saw that with Isaiah McKenzie. And the Bills, obviously he's on a different team.
Yep.
All right, you talked to another wide receiver who I think fans are going to be interested in.
A wide receiver?
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was going to finish one more other thing. We talked about Steph, we talked about Gabe. Dalton Kincaid looks really good.
So I need to interrupt you guys here. I said yesterday I want a moratorium on these Kincaid questions and all. And then I watched him today.
Really good.
He had a
looks
touchdown.
great.
He looks good.
He
He
had a
caught
touchdown.
one right here. He was
Had a
coming
touchdown.
across on, I guess it was more of like a deep out.
Looks smooth.
It's just, I love the way again, nobody's hitting you. He's not getting hit by a safety. He's not getting, none of that is happening. He just is, he's a different player. And I asked Dawson Knox about how much of that you guys play the same position. And then he said about the same. And then he went on to describe all the differences.
Yeah, it was
One's on
funny.
the inside, one's on the outside. They
Yeah.
can split it up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not going to take a rocket scientist or a bad defensive coordinator to figure out what they're going to probably try to do with him. But I think he's not a tight end. He's a wide receiver. I'm telling you, he is a big wide receiver. He's not going to be a blocker.
Correct.
They're going to need him to block. He's going to be a wide receiver for them.
And
24 hours later.
He also looks, slow down on the Kelsey comparisons.
Yeah, he's not Kelsey.
But, Mike, who did you compare him to?
Zach Ertz, I say it all the time, and Zach Ertz was an outstanding route runner, a dependable guy. And everybody says, I want somebody more dynamic. That's great. Zach Ertz was 6'75".
Yeah.
We had a Super Bowl winning touchdown, could get to the end zone. People used to talk about he doesn't break as many tackles. All he did was catch the ball and score touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like, again, there's
Be-
one
he
Travis
could
Kelsey.
Be,
Yeah.
He
Right?
could be that 6 for 70 guy.
Absolutely. Eventually. I mean, like week 2. We're not going to put too much on him, right?
I want to talk to Sean again because Sean was one
Coach,
that
I
was
was
like,
like-
guys, let him get a practice under his belt. And I wanted to be like, all right, Sean, so he's had a practice under his belt. Now give me everything that Dalton Kincaid does well and poorly.
And we are, just being honest with you, we understand the timing and he's a rookie and all those things. But it's nice to see that he looks the part.
Yeah.
My tweet was, I will not overreact to one practice. I will not overreact to one practice. I will not overreact to one.
How much was in caps lock?
There was a few words in caps lock.
Yeah,
And then I
he
said,
loves his cap locks.
Dalton Kincaid looks smooth. So.
He does. All right, let's talk who you talk to.
Yeah, if you're looking for a fan favorite, the story will come out in a little bit. But Shane Ray, he's a defensive end. If you know anything about his story, he's somebody to root for. He was a first-round pick of the Denver Broncos back in 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in that range. Kind of fell out of the league. He's been out of the NFL for the last 4 years, was straight up out, wasn't even trying to get on NFL teams for 2 years, then just played up in the CFL with the Toronto Argonauts, won a Grey Cup. Sat down with him. I told him it'd be a 10-minute interview. It ended up being 30 minutes. He's best friends with Von Miller. They call each other brothers. He said that he knows things about Von Miller that nobody else probably knows, vice versa, and they'll never tell anybody else because that's how close of brothers they are. But he talked about his struggles that he went through being a 21-year-old kid who was a 3-star recruit going to Missouri, had no expectations of playing in the NFL, to all of a sudden being a first-round pick, having millions of dollars, having fans, being talked about, all of those things, and he said he had no idea how to handle it. I think it's something we can relate to. It's something we talk about. Again, we can be critical of players. Guess what? They're also human beings too.
Yeah.
Steph said it too. And that was one of the more enlightening things. When you think about a guy, and Shane Ray talks about it, he goes, when I had all the money and all those things, and then he goes, and then when I was a regular person, he goes, I still had problems. Like, you still have issues. You still have a family. You still have all these things to deal with. So it'll be a long piece. It'll come out. But it was, if you're looking for somebody to root for, I asked Shane, and he doesn't know if he's going to make the team, any of those things, but he says there's already a level of satisfaction to the person he is in the mental headspace that he's in, the physical shape that he's in, the spiritual place that he's in, the person that he is, that he's already here at training camp.
You know, I wanted to add one thing. When you described all that, it sounds like you're talking about a player who's now retired from football and comes back to talk.
I said he sounds like a 20-year veteran.
Right.
He's 29.
But I appreciate for him that it's hard to find self-awareness, and he found it at the time. At least he has an opportunity. And if it doesn't work out, it sounds like his life is on a better path.
Yeah.
But what did Von say? You talk about their closeness. Von said, blood could not make us closer.
He says
he's my brother.
He said their mothers, their families are close. His little brother is his little brother, all of these things. And I asked him at the end of the interview, and I said, is there anything you want to say? Sometimes at the end of when we talk to players, I go, is there anything that you want to add? And he kind of took this deep pause, and he goes, if there's young players out in the league, he goes, embrace this. Embrace the smell of grass. Embrace the equipment managers. Embrace the water boys. Cool. He goes, because one day it's going to be gone, and you're going to be alone, and it's going to be tough to deal with. And he's somebody that had it all, lost it, and has come back. So incredible interview. If you're looking for somebody to root for, again, who knows if he's going to make it, but him and Von Miller, their bond, super close. Von had said yesterday that they'd gone on vacations together. I asked Shane where they had gone, and he goes, we've taken the PJ a lot of places. So
he also said they got tattoos together,
They have tattoos together during COVID, their entire legs. They pretty much sat in opposite chairs and just got their entire legs tattooed together.
Wow.
Unbelievable story.
I can't wait for the story.
Yeah, it's going to be
Great.
good.
I'm going to hate it.
You are going to hate it. You're going to hate how you put it together.
Correct.
It's going to be a great story, though.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I truly mean that.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Speaking of the defense, I thought Dawson Knox had a funny line today talking about Sean McDermott now calling the defense and what that was like.
Well, a lot of them talk about the competitiveness, that Sean has, and Dorsey joked about that too. But Knox was talking about how he walked over to the offensive huddle, and they're like, "Hey, pal, you're the DC now. You can't be knowing these plays. Go step over there. Get out of the way." And I think that is it. Really does seem to be universally accepted that these guys know. Like Sean was. Look, Leslie was the defensive coordinator, and Leslie was in charge of the defense. But Sean was 70% there.
I agree.
Yeah.
And now it's 100.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got help. He definitely has help on the staff, but I think Sean's embracing it. Two-hat Sean.
Two-hat.
With the big hat and then going with the baseball hat with the headphones.
Bright. Yeah, maybe we need the big hat.
Yeah, I know. It's getting bright out here.
Is there anything else you gentlemen want to add?
I would say this, quick thing. The Bills are great with autographs. Fantastic here at camp.
I was going to say that,
Today, the Special Olympics of Western New York was here. The players were above and beyond. I don't even know, honestly, if it specifically was about that, but I watched guys. I listened to them talk to people that were here. It made my day, let alone the people who were here.
Jenna cried.
They were fantastic today. Absolutely fantastic.
It was
amazing.
really, really sweet. And how much time I felt like every player took and the interactions that they had. Josh Allen also signed autographs, it felt like, for
forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
That's what I love about training camp, though, like the access that fans get. And it was really, really amazing to see.
I said to somebody, they were asking me on the radio today about camp, and I said, if camp ever leaves here, it could go to Buffalo, but it would be different.
Yep.
It would be a few days where there'd be fans mostly in the stadium. That's what they do in New England and Philly and all that. this kind of camp, boy, if it goes, you're not going to replicate this unless it was at a situation like this. So those are the kind of moments I'm like, damn, I'm really glad they're here because I thought it was great.
Yeah,
well said.
I agree. We'll end on that. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the channel. We always appreciate it. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, I am Jenna Cottrell. We'll catch you here next time on Buffalo Plus. What did I say?